Okay, let me know when I'm ready, Jake.
Welcome to Kovzversations, where your host, Carl Kozlowski, talks with the world's most interesting people. And now, this week's Kovzversation.
Hello, and welcome to another Kovzversation. And this one is a high-tech experiment this week, as both myself and my guest are phoning in. But I'm very excited to be having him on today. Out of probably 1,000 people I've interviewed over the years, he's got to be, if not the most exciting person for me to talk to, one of the top 5 for sure. My guest today is Burt Bacharach, who is an iconic pop music songwriter. He's written so many songs that everybody knows and loves for the past 40 to 50 years. What the world needs now is love. Raindrops keep falling on my head. That's what friends are for. You say this guy's in love with you. Walk on by. Just amazing stuff. He's won 3 Academy Awards, 8 Grammys, including a Lifetime Achievement, as well as an Emmy, and has had over 70 top 40 hits. So, in addition to being nominated for a Tony, he won the prestigious Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for a popular song, and he now is the co-author of the new autobiography, Anyone Who Had a Heart, My Life in Music. He's worked on it with Robert Greenfield. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you the one and only Burt Bacharach. So, how you doing,
Hey,
Burt?
Carl. Hey, Carl. Thank you for those kind words. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir. You're talking to us from New York, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw you on the CBS Morning News this morning, so this is kind of surreal to
that
be
feels like
Carl.
it was a year ago. It feels like a year ago, Carl. But
really? It must be a whirlwind. You must be talking to like a million people. So how did you decide... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. How did you decide now was the time to tell your story, and how did you pick Robert Greenfield to help you?
Well, it was something I never wanted to do, Carl. I mean, that I kind of resisted people that would urge me to do it. I'm too much into, like, not looking backwards, but trying to look in the present and looking forward and what I might write musically, and I might live my life without looking into the past and digging all that stuff up. So I kind of resisted it, definitely did. And about 2 years ago, this woman who I really respect a great deal in Los Angeles at her birthday dinner said, what about the book? Are you going to? And I said, I really don't want to do it, Lynn. And she said, I said, let somebody write it after I'm no longer here in this planet. And she said, but who's going to know the stories, all the stories you know that you've done, the years with Marlene Dietrich and Germany and Israel and all that stuff. And she had a point there. So that kind of motivated me to do it. And I thought, listen, at this time in my life, I've got 3 young kids. I mean, I've got a 27-year-old. I refer to them as young because of my age, but a 27-year-old boy, a 20-year-old son, and a 17-year-old daughter. And I'm very close to the 3 of them. And I then wanted them to have a story of who their father really was, with the pimples, with the blemishes, everything, if I was going to do it, do it. And so they could really have a deep knowledge of who I was, or who I am, I'd like to believe. So I started doing it, and just talking to the tape machine, and out of sequence, and not starting with, and I was born in Kansas City, and then I couldn't do that. I mean, so I for Bob Greenfield to put things together, like, that were out of sequence. And the other thing was, I really wanted it to be in my own voice, and going through it. If something didn't sound like me talking, my voice, because I am very obsessive compulsive about my music. I'm obsessive compulsive. If I'm going to do the book, then I'm going to do it all the way, right? I mean, I'm going to be totally honest, totally open, and I'm not going to hold anything back.
Gotcha.
Which I didn't do, yeah.
So how did you realize, when and how did you realize you had your gift for songwriting? I imagine it was as a boy. So was your family supportive of your musical interests?
My family was supportive of me. My mother pushed very hard for me to take piano lessons. I think my dad would have been okay either way. And I think that I hated taking piano lessons. I hated having to practice a half an hour after school every day. I had absolutely no love for music. Maybe hearing Harry James Band or something. That was some interest, but no interest until a certain point in my life when I started hearing, like somebody opened the door and said, "Listen to this: Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk, Charlie Parker, Tad Dameron." I mean, this was incredible,
Yeah.
And then somebody opened another door and let me listen to, instead of the heavy, Wagner and Beethoven, Bach, not Bach, Bach was good, Brahms. Let me hear the French Impressionists. Let me hear Ravel, Daphnis and Chloe. And that music sounded really very beautiful. And when the jazz ended, it sounded very exciting. So I suddenly, for the first time, got some stimulation for music. And that made a big change.
Okay. So then, how did your songwriting process work? And did it change over the years? Because I know you're responsible for the instrumental, the melody, and you worked with some brilliant lyricists, which I'll get to in a moment. So, but do you always hear like a music in your head somehow, or I've always wondered, like with great songwriters, what is it? Because as a writer, I'm always hearing, I'm always itching to get something down on paper, verbally. So is it the same way when you're musically inclined? Are you constantly hearing tunes in your head that you just got to get out there, or is it some other way?
Well, it works two ways for me. I've written with lyrics exclusively written first. I mean, an example would be Alfie. I mean, there was a lyric that was written because it had to say what the motion picture was about.
Sure. And
therefore, I would set that to music, which in its way took me to places that I might not have gone to in a musical form. Maybe a 10-bar phrase instead of an 8-bar phrase. So the fact that I like writing that way, I like with words first. I've written stuff recently with Stephen Sater, a musical that we had called Some Lovers that opened last year at the Old Globe, where the lyrics, it's very suitable for him to give me the lyric and let me just set that to music. And by the same token, I've written so many songs with Hal over the years that were the melody first, or maybe 6 bars or 4 bars, or he'd have like a title, opening phrase, and I'd set it. And we'd snowball things. We'd go from there to the next step. And then we'd meet the following day. There was no sort of, let's get in a room and write the song like, bang, and it's done in one day. We never did that. We did it once. We did it once on Promises when we were out of town, and we had to get a song into the show, and I had just gotten out of the hospital. in Boston with Promises, Promises. And the line, and I'll never fall in love again. What do you kiss a girl, you get enough germs to catch pneumonia. After you do, she'll never phone you. That came directly from the 5 days I had in Massachusetts General Hospital and getting out and feeling totally unwell and having to sit at the piano in a Ritz-Carlton hotel in Boston. And then one short day, write that song with Al. And that became the biggest hit. So the fastest song they ever wrote became the biggest hit in the show.
Huh. That's funny. So how did you know that you could work such magic with Hal David and then, of course, later with Carol Bayer Sager? Did you guys get put together? Because I know there was the old system of I don't know if this fell. I don't think this fell in the era of Tim Panally or the Brill Building songwriting. Was it, or did you guys find each other through a more organic process of, hey, I like your work, so let's do something together?
Well, it was a time of the Brill Building, the same Brill Building, and we were all in the Brill Building. All these writers, like I'd write with Bob Hilliard one afternoon, and the next morning I'd write with Hal David, and the writer that I had written, that Bob Hilliard had been writing with, was suddenly writing with Hal David. It would bounce around like that. There were 8 floors of music publishers, and it was like musical chairs going from space to space. So, listen, we wrote some terrible songs to start out. We were not overnight success stories. Okay. We're not. Hal had some hits before me. He'd been doing it longer than me. But we wrote some songs that you'll never hear, Carl. Like Underneath the Overpass and Peggy's in the Pantry. Bad songs. Songs that I thought, well, maybe this is what's commercially right. Anyway, it really, the big change for me was, even though I was having hits, being able to get into a studio and be able to run the session, write the orchestration. And somebody had to take that gamble with me, and, it was like Calvin Carter, A&R man out of Chicago, CJ Records. He said, Burt, listen, you got the song, make it easy on yourself. I want to record it with Jerry Butler. I want you to do the arrangement, conduct the orchestra, play the piano, do it the tempo you feel it, kind of work with Jerry, and that's what happened. And, the record turned out to be a hit. And it gave me the freedom to be able to be in the studio. Excuse me. Hang on a second.
Sure.
Yeah, and have the ability to be in the studio and record different people. And have the freedom. And that made all the difference in the world. Then if it didn't work, you see, Carl, if it didn't work, then I could say, no one to blame, not the A&R man, not the arranger. Just blame yourself, because you called the tempo, you wrote the arrangement, you made the record. I like that very much. I will be glad to take the credit and take the blame when it didn't work.
Well, with regard to with how those specifically, since those are generally acknowledged as among your greatest tunes, and there were so many of them, I understand what you're saying in general about mixing up with different writers, but with him, was it that, and you said you also appreciate trying to write to the lyrics. So was somebody whose lyrics you came up in discussions there, and you were like, hey, I'd like to take a crack at this? Or how specifically did you two get together.